Welcome to This Week in Missouri Politics this week. This week we are joined by a very special guest. Our state political viewers would know you from your days in the State House, but now the whole state and now all of Washington knows you as Congressman Jason Smith from Southeast Missouri. Welcome to This Week in Missouri Politics.
Scott, it's great to be with you. You just try to get your job done.
Well, let's talk about the jobs. Since you've got to Congress and got a new job, you've been getting more and more added to you. It seems like it's going well, Ways and Means.
You know, I knew quickly that I wanted to be on the committee that I felt like that was involved in everything, because I don't want to sit up there and just watch the paint dry. I want to make sure that my time serving the folks in Southeast and South Central Missouri, I'm doing my job. And the Ways and Means Committee is a committee has jurisdiction over all tax reform, over all welfare reform, over Medicare. So you're looking at numerous different areas that touch every aspect of our life. And when I look at the folks back home, we are the most diversified ag district outside the state of California. We grow everything but citrus and sugar, and so trade is a very important aspect. And it's also the committee that has jurisdiction over all trade. And when you look at tax policy, everyone cares about taxes. So I think that it's the right committee to be on, and Missouri hadn't had a representative on the Ways and Means Committee since former Congressman Kenny Hulshoff. So it was about time we get someone there.
Now, viewers of This Week in Missouri Politics are some of the most politically astute viewers that you'll run into, so they're going to get this, where it's probably hard to describe this everywhere, but to our viewers know what a steering committee is. You get to pick the chairman, right? How did that come about, and what have you learned on that committee that our viewers, the more insiders, would be interested to know?
Well, I'll tell you from the insider's perspective, trying to get on the committee of Ways and Means, I learned quickly how important the steering committee was, because there's roughly a membership of about 30 members of Congress that decide who sits on all the committees. Wow. They decide who all the chairmen are. So it's quite important. So to get on the Ways and Means Committee, I had to go meet with every one of the members, basically say why I would be the best fit to serve in that open spot on Ways and Means. And I knew quickly that this is where I could also help influence policy in Washington, D.C. by serving on there. And the last person from Missouri to ever be on the steering committee was Senator Roy Blunt. Wow. And I thought, again, you know, it's been way too long. It's time for Missouri to have a voice, and glad to be on there. And I like the idea that even though I don't serve on the Appropriations Committee, that when we pick a new appropriations chairman in the next Congress, that they're going to be coming into my office and giving their sales pitch of why it's so important. And
I assume they'll get to hear about Missouri when
they're
they do
going
that.
to hear about how important it is to take care of the Mississippi River, the Missouri, and then all the other projects that Missouri needs.
Let's talk about a project that actually is going on in Missouri right now, in Oregon County. The state government's used some settlement funds to buy some land. My assumption is the folks back where you're from, and even in West Butler County, aren't a big fan of the government owning more land.
You know what? Government should always be open, transparent, and accountable. I mean, I think everyone who is serving would agree with that. And watching this whole process, it's been lacking all three. And in fact, 2 weeks ago, I went and visited the over 4,100 acres that was just recently purchased down in Oregon County. And with all the conversation that had been going on, I just had envisioned that this is a bunch of trees. It's probably a future wilderness area that they're probably trying to want to do with DNR, but in fact, it's rolling hills. There were Angus cows currently grazing on the property. It's just a bunch of rolling hills with a lot of pasture. And when you look at what the Post-Dispatch reported early on, that DNR said that the main purpose of it is to create a state park that will be 10 primitive campsites. If they're wanting a state park with 10 primitive campsites, they purchased the wrong piece of property. Because for one, you don't need to average roughly 600 to 700 acres per primitive campsite. And I could show you numerous places throughout the lead belt where these funds are supposed to be spent by ASARCO, whether it's San Francisco County, Madison County, Iron, Reynolds, Dent, that you could find a much better location.
Or people want to go camping.
Absolutely. And I can guarantee you that all of our campsites right now in Missouri state parks aren't full as we speak. So I feel like that there is more to the purchase of the 4,100 acres, and I believe that the governor and DNR needs to be forefront. I mean, you've purchased the property now, which we believe that it was purchased inappropriately, and there wasn't really a true connection with the funds from the lead belt. But now, since it is state-owned property, tell us what you're going to do with it. Because it may be something that we all would totally agree on, but every taxpayer deserves to know, every elected official deserves to know, and the governor should be open.
Representative Robert Ross has been all over this issue. He has a bill moving through to, I'm not even sure, but I know it's not what the governor's office wants to have happen with that property. Do you see the state legislature coming through with their supermajorities and changing the course of this property purchase and development?
The state legislature is getting just as upset as what we do in Washington, D.C. when you have a executive branch that is bypassing them. We see that all the time with President Obama, and this is what state lawmakers feel like, is that this purchase of this property was done behind their backs and without efficient public comment. And that is what I believe why Representative Robert Ross is pushing this legislation, and a lot of other members. Jay Barnes has the identical piece of legislation, and then you're seeing a lot of the senators that's very interested in this issue as well. But if you just look at the public comment process of how this property was purchased, it was disclosed in two areas. It was disclosed on the DNR website, and then it was disclosed in the Federal Register. How many people do you think looks at those thousands of pages in the Federal Register to see, well, Uncle Sam or the state of Missouri are going to be purchasing property in my backyard? Absolutely not. People have to, go on with their day-to-day lives, worry about paycheck to paycheck, just taking care of their family and hoping the government's not going to be part of it. So it wasn't properly disclosed, and even in Oregon County, there was not one public meeting held by DNR so that the citizens of that area could voice their opinions.
Real quickly, the presidential race. We know you've picked a candidate in Senator Rubio. Why?
Marco is truly the next generation of leadership that our country needs. Without a doubt, I know all the candidates very well. I work with several of them. And looking at the front, looking at the list of candidates, I've always said I want to support the most conservative candidate that can win. And without a doubt, Marco is the most conservative candidate that can win. He can beat Hillary in a matchup 1-to-1.
He beats Hillary Clinton?
Absolutely. I would have no question about that. And we'll see what's going to happen. Iowa's going to be interesting on Monday night, and then we go to New Hampshire.
I hear you're going to Iowa to speak for Senator Rubio.
I am very happy to be a surrogate for Marco at the Iowa caucus, and I'm going to do everything I can to help make sure he's the next president of the United States.
It'll be very interesting to see Monday night. And I've always felt like when people go to be surrogates up there for the process, they always see something they've never seen before and always have a great story. And we hope that you'll come back this week in Missouri Politics and give us a report on it.
I look forward to it, and we'll definitely be back.
Congressman Smith, thank you very much for being here.
Scott, it's my pleasure. Good to see you, my friend.
And we'll be back with a very fun and opinionated opinion maker panel after this, but we'll leave you with this week's Missouri Leading Economic Indicators.
All across Missouri, our new car and truck dealers are building strong local economies. When you buy a car or truck in Missouri, you're helping to support over 20,000 Missouri families who rely on the auto industry for good-paying local jobs. You're also helping fund our communities, schools, first responders, and our roads because dealers generate millions of dollars in tax revenue. Missouri's automobile dealers have been the foundation of our communities for generations and for generations to come. The Missouri Automobile Dealers Association, the heart of Missouri.
For more than a century, the St. Louis Carpenters Union has shaped our communities. Through trusted alliances, we deliver skilled professional craftspeople while our business partners provide the kind of quality jobs that keep our economy humming. It's a blueprint that has worked since 1882. Turning Missouri into a right-to-work state stalls progress, wipes out jobs, and kills momentum. Right to work is wrong for everyone. Let's keep Missouri moving forward. Visit carpdc.org to learn more.
And we're back with one of our, hopefully, most opinion maker panels we had in a long time. We'll start with Eapen Thampy, a governmental consultant, knows Jeff City very well. Welcome to This Week in Missouri Politics.
Thank you for having me.
Well, welcome back, Representative Bryan Spencer for Heartland. So, Representative, welcome back on.
Glad to be back on.
Governmental knowledge extraordinaire, senior counsel with Husch Blackwell, some of the best hair we've seen for early on a Sunday morning. Jay Atkins, welcome to This Week in Missouri Politics.
Appreciate it. Thanks for having me, Scott.
Did you put the hair on the bottom half of your face? I think it's a strategic move.
Fell is what happened. It just,
gravity. What are you going to do? And welcome back, Senator Jamilah Nasheed. Now, we're hoping you'll come out of your shell and give us some actual opinions this week, if you can. We'd appreciate it. And let's start with a person you know very well, whose career is on the rise in Washington, Jason Smith. What do you think of his interview?
Well, Jason is a good friend of mine. He and I came in together in 2019.
Back in the day.
2007. And he's a great guy. You know, he's doing pretty well for his district. And I just want to say to him, if he's listening, Jason, I love you. You're a good guy. You're one of my best Republican friends, contrary to the popular belief.
Let's talk about a bill that you were very passionate about, and that's the sex trafficking bill you discussed this week. Give us the rundown on what it is.
Well, last year, we were able to pass a piece of legislation, Senate Concurrent Resolution 1. And that is to shine the light on sex trafficking here in the state of Missouri. I don't know if you know, but it's a silent epidemic. You know, a lot of people are not paying attention to what's happening with young girls as well as boys here in the state of Missouri. We're in the top 20 when it comes to sex trafficking in the United States. So what we want to do is shine a light on such a serious, horrific act that's actually occurring here in the state of Missouri. Our next step would be to fund safe haven homes for those that escape their predators. We just really think that this is a serious issue that needs to be addressed here in the state of Missouri.
Representative, is this an issue that makes it through this year in Jeff City?
I think it's going to make a lot of traction, and if it doesn't get all the way through this year, it definitely will next year. It's something that needs to be addressed.
Jay, this is an issue that a rising star in the Missouri Republican Party, Elijah Hart's taken to heart and worked on as well. Do you think another step gets taken this year?
I absolutely do, and I think I know that this is a debate panel, and I know the senator here very well, and we don't often agree, but on this one, I think she's spot on, and I appreciate the work she's doing. And Elijah, Representative Hart, is a good friend of mine, and has really done yeoman's work on this issue. And I think, especially with bipartisan support and some backing in the Senate, I do think it hopefully crosses the finish line. But certainly, it's this issue. Needed to have awareness raised, and our elected officials have done a great job with that, and I think it's a great piece of legislation.
Eapen, this seems like a common sense thing.
Absolutely.
Debating's fine, but we don't want to debate for the sake of debate, right? I mean, this seems, does this actually happen, though? It has its detractors. It has its folks that probably don't want credit for killing it, but could. Is this something that makes it?
I hope it does. I'm not sure if I'm qualified or know enough to say that it will, but I think it has a good chance.
Well, I tell all my clients, Scott, that no matter who they are at this point in the session, they come to me and say, "What's the chances it's going to pass?" My answer is always the same. Until about the second week of May, my answer is always the same, and that is 50-50. I mean, a lot happens. It's a long session. You just don't know. Let's
talk about something where this panel won't be in support. We'll be much closer to 50-50. You're working on maintaining the earnings tax. It is something that our viewers will know about. Yep. It's a tax in St. Louis on earnings that doesn't exist other places. It's a city-done thing in St. Louis and Kansas City. Give us an update on where the legislation is and why you're where you are on it.
Yeah, so by way of background, we have, I think, Husch Blackwell's the best, one of the greatest law firm in Missouri. There's my plug.
There you go.
Our headquarters between the two cities, we're in here in Clayton and then Kansas City, and we between those two offices have 600 attorneys or so, and very involved with the business community and do a lot of work within the cities. So our chairman and our managing partner reached out to the mayors of the two cities and said, "Hey, look, this is important to you guys. We want to be good corporate citizens. What can we do to help?" So
there's a bill to get rid of it.
There's a bill to get rid of it.
Why is it not a good idea?
Right. It's for starters, because my Republican brethren, we like to wave the anti-tax flag, and a lot of times I agree with them. But we also respect small government. And the reality is, there was a bill passed about 5 years ago to put to a vote of the people every 5 years whether or not they want to keep the earnings tax. And quite frankly, the people of Kansas City and the people of St. Louis have spoken, and they've supported it overwhelmingly to the tune of 75-80%. So I don't think we want to be in the business of sitting in Jefferson City and saying, hey, you guys got it wrong.
Senator Nasheed, though, now you're a very pragmatic politician.
Sometimes.
If you're a Republican legislature, how many Republicans represent the city of St. Louis? What about
None.
0? Many Democrats who represent West Butler County. This is a
Right.
tax cut that could be passed on. And let's be honest, there's many different economic theories. Folks say the earnings tax is inhibiting St. Louis's growth, and it could grow more. Why do you want to keep this earnings tax? And I mean, wouldn't your citizens like a tax cut?
Well, no. The people, they basically said that they want to sustain the earnings tax by way of a vote. They went out and they voted overwhelmingly to keep the earnings tax. What you're saying as a senator that doesn't live here, lives in Columbia, trying to infuse his ideals and Rex's ideals onto the people. I mean, this is a local control issue. We will lose approximately $180 million if we do away with the earnings tax.
But now, who's we?
The city of St. Louis.
They'll keep their own money, though.
The city of St. Louis, we will lose $180 million if we do away, if the Republicans and Rex do away with the earnings tax. And where are we going to get those dollars back from? I mean, where would they come from? If we lose those dollars, how will we generate those dollars, and what other areas? That they don't have an ideal in terms of how you do away with an earning tax and then replace the monies that we will lose. They don't have that ideal, and they don't have that solution. And so I believe that we will lose our law enforcement officers. We would have a major decline when it comes to public safety officers. We would have a major decline when it comes to firefighters, and our roads and bridges would decline as well in terms of the infrastructure and how we should sustain those. So it's really not a good ideal for the St. Louis area. And I think at the end of the day, you have one guy who feels that he knows what's best for the city of St. Louis, and that's Rex Sinksfield, and I'm in his studio, but I'm still opposed to his earnings tax.
Even if she says the money, we won't get the money. The money's not going to go to Sri Lanka. The money's going to stay with people to spend how they want to spend it, right?
Yeah, generally I'm opposed to taxing income as opposed to consumption. I think that you'd want to look at a broad-based sales tax to replace revenues, but that also ties the size and the capacity of the municipal government more closely to how well it's doing its job in terms of providing a business-friendly environment and in terms of providing a population-friendly environment. Those touch on a number of broader issues, but generally, that's my perspective. I like tax and consumption instead of earnings.
Representative, your colleagues run on pro-life, pro-gun, and cutting taxes. Is it any wonder they show up to Jeff City and vote for something that's pro-life, pro-gun, and to cut taxes?
I just want to tell any business out in St. Louis that they're welcome to come across the river to St. Charles County, because we would welcome them, and we don't have that tax there.
There is one issue, though. If you look around the city of St. Louis, there's been several things with the legislature that was very opposed to funding a stadium. The legislature has been very opposed to a gun docket that the mayor says would help address some issues. The mayor, in my view, is one of the best political leaders in this state. This city could become a major problem. And it's harder to buy public services in Sedalia if the city of St. Louis goes the way of Detroit. Is there not a part where you have to look for ways to help the mayor? Or, like in Detroit, the city of St. Louis will not be the mayor of St. Louis's problem, it'll be your problem.
Well, I think the best way to help the mayor is to provide opportunities for people to gain gainful employment. And if they're doing things to make it an unfriendly business market, people are going to move their business to a greener pasture.
Speaking of greener pastures, though, let's move on to another issue. Eapen, you've committed a big chunk of your life, and now it seems like maybe the time is right to discuss medical marijuana. Give us an update on where it is, and it was a good week for what you've been working on this week.
Oh,
right?
absolutely. You know, Senator Rob Schaaf has sponsored Senate Bill 912, where we hope to work with him to make a couple small modifications and find sponsorship in the House. I think the time is right. You know, we were seeing widespread, broad-based support for this issue. We had the incoming president of the Missouri Sheriff's Association, the Jackson County Sheriff Mike Sharp, come out recently on this, and his perspective was, I have an autistic nephew, and if the doctor says this is good for him, why wouldn't it be a good idea? Why wouldn't it be something I support? And that's the crux of the argument. I think Missouri is ready to say it's time for the government to get out of the doctor-patient relationship and allow for patients who need it to access cannabis therapeutics.
Jay, I mean, who cares what people smoke? And if it's for a medical thing done by a doctor,
right.
Why would a conservative want to tell you what you can and can't smoke?
Well, and it's a fair point, but we can't ignore reality. So I've been in Missouri. I've been a Missourian for about close to 2 decades now. But I grew up in Colorado. I still have a sister that practices law back there, and my conservative gut instinct is, quite frankly, as a parent and a citizen of the state, I'd hate to see Missouri go the route of Colorado, right? So I think we have to. I think it's a legitimate debate to have. I think medical marijuana, reasonable medical marijuana under the doctor's care, I think is probably something that we can explore, make sure there's safeguards in place, and make sure that we know who has licenses and how they're cultivating the medicinal marijuana and stuff. But I think we got to be really careful about opening Pandora's box, because
I'd hate to see the state go the way of anarchy, but I'm for a smaller government.
Sure. I understand that, but we also understand that government exists. Even my Republican brethren will tell you that the government exists to, it has some role to play in public safety, right? And this kind of lands right in that space,
Representative Spencer, I got to say, in West Butler County, we don't fancy the government coming on our property and telling us what to do, period. Whether it's DNR or somebody else. Why do some Republicans think it's okay to cut taxes and to tell you get rid of government regulations, but then they want to be in your private life? Why didn't government get the heck out of everything?
Part of that I agree with. You have to realize, people my age and a little younger grew up with Ronald Reagan and Nancy Reagan's Just Say No. So we have that education foundation behind us.
Good for you.
And then on the other side of the coin, I've met with parents that are doing a lot of different things to take care of their child who has a brain tumor or cancer, and I applaud them for doing whatever is possible to save their child's life. I'm torn on the issue, but as a teacher who worked with behavioral disorder kids, I also see the aspects of those kids not being as successful as those who are not on drugs.
Jamilah, why do the Republicans want to run your life? Why? When will they stop?
I don't think they will ever stop.
So where are you on this issue? Is this a legislative fix or is this a ballot initiative fix?
Yeah, I think it's a ballot initiative fix. I think the people should decide. We should take it to the vote of the people. I don't think that there is anything wrong with medical marijuana, especially if it's going to help sustain our industry within the medical field. So if people need to use medical marijuana to save their lives or to help them feel better each day, why not give them that opportunity?
But isn't this a Republican issue? I mean,
absolutely.
To me,
this is, there are fundamental conservative principles here. The prohibition on cannabis has not worked. It's not worked in 40 years. Why do we want to keep spending more money and trying to keep doing something that just doesn't work?
But didn't Indiana or Ohio just have it on the ballot last year?
And that's a good point. The reason why the Ohio initiative tanked is because there were 10 or 12 investors who each put in $2 million, and they ran a campaign where their constitutional amendment literally gave them, the specific 10 investors, the licenses for the legal commerce.
Is there that many swing voters that will
created a
solve
constitutional monopoly, and that's one of the dangers of having something on the constitutional ballot here in Missouri, is that the petition that's going around creates a constitutional monopoly. There's 75 licenses.
I think that understates the problem. I mean, to say that this initiative failed because there was some investors in this kind of wonky argument about the constitutionality.
This wasn't a wonky argument.
How many things that Missouri Republicans need to tell you can't do to be free people? Is it a million things they say you can't do? Is it two? When can they be conservative?
Yeah, that's fine, and it's nice to bat that around and say, well, it's just cannabis and what. Okay,
Braveheart thought freedom was nice.
There is drug use in this country is a problem. Okay, now I'm not going to sit here and tell you that smoking marijuana is going to, lead to you using harder drugs, but go talk to an addict, and I'm reasonably certain they're going to tell you that they started with marijuana. So I'm not saying it leads to that, but I am saying that there's a public safety concern about drug use, and I'm not sure that opening that door is the way we want to go.
Our last topic, and speaking of addicts, we all have to watch the presidential race. If you're on this stage, you're paying attention. Real quickly at the end, Donald Trump blows off the debate. What did you think, Representative Spencer?
He's going to have to take care of Putin. He's going to have to take care of China. He's going to take care, and he can't take care of Megyn Kelly.
So let's pop to the Democrat side here. I know you're a Hillary Clinton fan.
Absolutely.
Do you like her? Have you met her? Do you like her?
You know, she's a great woman. She has all of the credentials that's needed in order to be
Do you like her on TV,
president
though?
here in the United States. I mean, you're talking an attorney. She's an author, Secretary of State, First Lady, and we can go on and on. But she has
career politician.
She has the
And
credentials
what
and
has she
skills
accomplished?
to be able to move this country forward. And I think that she would do a fine job.
Marco Rubio's likable. I think even her best supporters say she's not that likable on television. Can she beat Marco Rubio?
We're looking for someone to lead this country, okay? And it's not about who you like. It's about
George Bush
who
was
can.
president. Jeb Bush won't be. One's likable, one, I don't know.
She's likable. She's likable.
Even Debbie, who wins the Democrats? Does Bernie Sanders come up from behind here?
You know, this is looking a lot like 2008 in some ways. A lot like 2008, and there's a big momentum on that side. You know, we'll see. You know, 2 million donors. That's not that's more than Obama
the one that
had.
doesn't look at all like 2008 is the Republican side.
Bernie will burn out.
Bernie burns out, but look at this. Look at this hat.
I tell you what it
Donald
looks like.
Trump,
I tell you
totally
what tell you what it looks like to me.
Nice.
It looks like 1980 all over again. I
Hey.
think Donald Trump is going to pull Reagan-esque voters.
You
He's
think it's
gonna get
morning in Missouri?
crossover votes. And I think it's time to make America great again. That's all I'm saying.
You know what? There's nothing we could say that could top that hat on Jay Atkins. So that's where we'll leave it for this week on This Week in Missouri Politics, and we'll be back next week and see you then. This Week in Missouri Politics, brought to you in part by Sterling Bank.